Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Book and LBB Coaching once more. Again, today we are back with another great conversation around miscommunication between men and women. And we're going to be breaking down today why men and women seem to have a lot of arguments in relationships. And I broke it down to make it as simply as possible for you guys today. So make sure you guys are doing me a massive favor. You're liking, you're sharing, and you are subscribing. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been in a situation where you are having a conversation and you just can't seem to come to the same level, right? Maybe you're talking to your partner, talking to your boyfriend or husband or whoever, and you just can't seem to kind of connect. It's not seemingly making sense. Y'all keep missing each other. You know, you keep misunderstanding and misaligning each other's points, and you just can't seem to come to that place where you guys are understanding of one another. Well, today we're going to break it down as to why this happens between men and women. Yes, this whole series has been about why men and women seem to just kind of not really get it. Why don't you get it? Why don't you understand me? Why don't you hear me? And one of the biggest things I actually researched around this topic was around how men and women speak differently. Now, one of the ways that they speak in very, very unique perspectives is that oftentimes, and not all the time, but oftentimes, women tend to speak in very emotive language. Now, I know a lot of you ladies are going to say to me, that's not me. And hey, I hear it. It's not you. But oftentimes women do speak in a very emotive language. Men tend to speak very literal. And actually, this is where the problem starts. Because when women speak in that emotive language, what men tend to hear, especially in relationships, is they begin to hear accusations. Let me give you an example. A woman might say, "You don't love me." And a man's going to hear an accusation. Or she might say, "I feel like you don't love me." And he's hearing an accusation. And to be fair, he's right to hear an accusation because she did accuse him. She said, "You don't love me." But what he fails to understand is she's not being literal. What she's trying to get across to him is her emotive, expressive language to him to say that something isn't quite right about the relationship. And this is where the Bible says men dwell with women according to knowledge. Why? Because once you begin to understand them and understand where they're coming from, you tend to kind of operate in a very different kind of way. You now know that when she says, "You don't love me," it is not her accusing you, which makes you want to go away and avoid her and, not want to be around her. Now you dwell with them according to knowledge. So we're going to break it down. You know me, I got my slides, I got everything ready for the conversation. We're going to break it all the way down. Okay, we're going to break it all the way down for you guys, hopefully help you guys have better conversations with the opposite sex and stop the miscommunication from here on out. Okay, so first and foremost, again, do me a massive favor, like it, share, subscribe, click on that wonderful bell button for notifications of the uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and loaded. We're going to get into this. Okay, I'm going to get my little slides out so you guys can actually have a conversation. You know how I like my slides. You know how I like my slides. Okay, all right, I know how I like my slides. All right, cool. So today we're talking about the mistakes that lead to miscommunication. As I said earlier on, the problem with it between men and women is that we are making mistakes. We are assuming that the opposite sex speaks exactly the same way that we do, right? Men are assuming that women mean things literal. Women assume that men understand emotional nuance. And whilst they may do, they don't talk that way. So oftentimes when a woman says something, the man is taking it very literal. When a man says it very literal, the woman feels he's being emotive. It's just one of those things that we have to come to a place of understanding. So the mistakes that lead to miscommunication. As I said before, men speak very literally most times and directly, and they often speak in the place of problem solving, which can actually invalidate a woman's feelings. That can end up becoming a problem as well. And then women read between the lines. Women are very good at reading between the lines and oftentimes speaking in nuances and feelings. And this is where there can also be a miscommunication. So women talk to express their emotions and bond. Men tend to try and speak and try to bring solutions to the table. We've been talking about that for the last 4 weeks, and we're going to expand that a bit more. So understand something. The male logic behind all of this is that when men speak directly and solution-based, what they're really trying to do is show their competency. I think I said this last time, but when men speak, they're speaking from a place of, if I speak with problem solving and solutions, I'm going to look more competent, because the way that men think is that when we solve issues, we are independent, but we're also considered to be valuable based upon the ability to solve problems. But communication isn't just about you being able to solve problems. It's more than that. Okay? Men don't tend to try and read between the lines. They want it to be literal. So if you say you angry at me, I'm not looking to read between the lines. you are angry at me. If you're vexed at me, I'm hearing you, you're vexed at me, right? Rather than actually trying to read between the lines and understand there's something else, another message you're trying to convey. It's very direct and very literal. Okay, all right. And then men tend to process things internally before they speak. Again, coming back to that place of what I said about competency for men specifically. They want to feel competent as well. Okay, now for the ladies as well, women tend to express feelings through hints, emotions, and indirect language. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Okay, it's the hints, the emotions, and the indirect language. Because one party sees it literal, the other does not. And they expect men just to know. I had a conversation about this on Threads the other day. And a girl said, oh my God, a woman, I should have said, a woman said, not a girl, but a woman said, she was like, he doesn't love you if he doesn't just know. And I said, why would he just know? Why wouldn't you communicate? Why wouldn't you just tell him that you want flowers? Oh, he should just know. He should know through the aspect of conversation. He should just know what I like. And I said, whilst I hear that, you're talking as a woman to a woman, not to a man. You have to understand that men don't often necessarily process information the exact same way. Whilst I do believe there's some merit to what she was saying, I think she also missed the other side, which is that men speak very literally and they want it directly. So if you want flowers, tell him you want flowers and he gonna get you some flowers. But she was like, no, I just want him to know. I want him to know. And it's because the magic of her is that understand. She's looking at it from a woman's perspective, which is when women tend to understand things, they tend to pick up on the little things, the nuances, the expressions. They try to read between the lines. They try to anticipate and assume. And that's okay. Amongst women, that makes sense. And just like amongst men, we don't want to assume, bro, is that what you're saying? Because if that's what you're saying, that's what it is, right? And that doesn't mean that every single woman is like that and every single man's like that. There are different, of course, different shades in that. But in a general principle, that's what tends to happen. So when women say they just want them to know, it's that aspect of not being very direct. So when they talk, it's not always about solutions for women. It's about feeling heard. And you've heard me say this many, many times on this platform, especially in these weeks. Okay, so I went and got a lot of examples just kind of help us along this conversation to make it a bit more easier to understand how we are actually missing each other in the communicational stages, okay? So one of the examples I got to, let me have some water because my throat is doing a lot right now. Water is that golden. Okay, so one of the things here is that women say, for instance, might say an example here, we never spend time together anymore. If you're in a chat right now or if you're on Instagram or watching a replay, leave a comment down below. Have you ever said to your partner, we never spend time together anymore? Have you ever said those lines? Yeah, okay. Have you ever said those lines? You know, many times people do say these lines, right? Women will say to you, we don't spend no time anymore. You don't take me out anymore. You've never washed the dishes. You've never done this thing. You know what I mean? You never. And you hear the passion, right? And so they're saying this not because they want to necessarily be rude or disrespectful, but they're trying to get a point across, right? So a boyfriend will hear her words as criticism and defense. And gets defensive, right? He hears criticism. So again, because women speak oftentimes in the emotive nuances, right? When she's saying we never spend time anymore, he's not hearing the nuance. He's hearing literal. He's hearing, oh no. Are you telling me that we don't spend time anymore? When I wanted to spend time with you, and then the argument becomes about something that wasn't actually literal. Okay, she's expressing how she's feeling, but it sounds like a criticism. So immediately he's taking it on board and going, no, that's not what's happening. I'm not going to be accused, right? Now we saw this on Love Is Blind with Daniel and Taylor. If you don't watch it, go watch it. That exact same situation where someone accuses somebody, right? But what the truth of the matter is that she actually means I miss you and I want to spend more quality time together, right? That's what she's really saying. Or she might be saying, I'm really afraid that we are creating distance and I don't feel like we're, I don't feel as close to you anymore. I don't feel as connected to you anymore. You know what I'm saying to you? Like there are real truths underneath that statement. So when she says I miss, she really should be saying I miss you and I want to spend more quality time with you. But instead she will probably end up choosing we never spend time anymore. Okay, and that's actually one of the ways an argument starts to kick off, because the man hears a criticism, and as soon as he hears a criticism, the moment he hears that, he wants to defend himself because he doesn't believe he done anything wrong. Okay, number two, a man may say, I need some space. Okay, but the wife will hear, I don't love you anymore. Right now, or you know what, he's running away, or you know, it could be saying, I don't, you know, he doesn't want this relationship anymore. She is now adding to the nuance. You know what happened? You know how we know this? This happened in the Garden of Eden. Okay, Eve then added up the extras. She said, listen, you can't even touch that tree. And the word was not you can't touch the tree. The tree was you can't eat from the tree. But hey, maybe Adam gave it a wrong message in the first place, right? So a man may say, I need some space. A woman will hear, I don't love you anymore, or you don't care about me, or you are trying to distance yourself from me, right? And actually, he just says, I just want to have some time to clear my head. That's all. I'm not running away from you. I just want some time to clear my head, get myself in my own space. Okay, all right. Okay, so the mistake that gets made, okay, oftentimes, is that women assume men understand emotional nuance, but men process words at face value. Okay, all right. Men process words at face value. So women believe that the men understand the emotional nuance, is what I was saying to you. That so when she says, you know, you don't love me no more, she thinking that she's talking to one of the girls. No, darling, you're talking to one of the boys, and we're not understanding that. It doesn't make sense for us. When you say you don't love me anymore, we're already, and especially the word never, ever, forever. I've said this. These are killer words. No man, no woman should use it. Please don't use it. If you're in a relationship, stop using it. It's a criminal crime of criminality. You know what I'm saying, Chew? Now I know those words don't go together, but it is what it is. Don't be using never, ever, forever. Yeah, because they're words that are definitive and that actually aren't real. Like, you know that person. If that person was never, ever, forever, you shouldn't even be with that person. Right? So those are words I believe that nobody should use. A man or woman, stop using those words. If you're somebody who uses those vocabularies as never, ever, forever, leave it alone. Okay? So a better response is, instead of assuming the worst, okay, all right, there needs to be a question that is asked. Okay, there needs to be a question that is asked. Are you saying you just need time to recharge? I think even added to that, you can even say, hey, you know, I'm feeling a little bit disconnected, you know, and you taking time out is making me feel like, you know, you're kind of distancing yourself from me. Again, I talk about this RTT, the real-time truth. You can share how you feel, right? But we're looking for inquiry. We're not looking for judgment. So this is a whole point. That question there that the woman's asking is, are you saying you just need time to recharge? What she's doing is she's inquiring. She's not judging. And many a times, both what men and women do as to why they get into arguments is they immediately make an assumption based on what they see, but based on what trauma they're carrying. So they go straight to a judgment, and rather than go into a place of inquiry. Okay? All right? Rather than going to a place of inquiry. So we need to be in that place where you are talking, okay, very much so inquiry rather than judgment. Don't jump to those conclusions now. Okay, for the men, men who take women's words literally instead of looking at the emotional meaning behind them are going to always cause themselves issues, right? If you hear her say, you don't love me no more, bro, she hasn't left you. So she clearly is not saying that she don't love you no more or you don't love her no more. She's wanting something from you, right? Now, this is where it can be very difficult. Because some men will look at this as manipulation. Oh, you're just fishing for a compliment, or you're just looking for sympathy, or you're looking to manipulate me, my emotions. Hey, my guy, I hear what you're saying, but before you get to that stage, you've gone to judgment, not to inquiry. You've jumped to a judgment, not to inquiry. The inquiry must start with a question. We are inquiring. So if you're starting the conversation with a judgment by making a statement, that's where you're going wrong. For both men and women, whenever you are trying to clarify something, you don't clarify with a statement, you clarify with a question. Right? We don't clarify with a statement, we clarify with a question. So for the man, for the woman, you say, do you mean to say you miss me? You know? Do you mean that you miss me? Or even asking, hey, I'm hearing there's a lot of emotions in your voice right now. What's really going on? Help me to understand what's going on. You said I don't love you, you know, and I'm not really understanding. Help me to understand what's going on with you right now. Right? Because I think this is even that statement there that's put on there, that question that's there has a baseline, right? To say, do you mean to miss me? I would say, while that's great, I think you're already stating that person has a baseline. You may not have that baseline yet. So if you don't have that baseline of your partner to know that this is what they mean when they say this, the other way to do this is to ask a generalizing question, which is, hey, I'm hearing a lot of emotion, which everybody should know. I'm hearing that you're a little bit upset at something. Bring me into your world. What's going on? What's up with you? You know? Are you okay? You know what I mean? So that's another way to kind of look at it. It's to ask a qualifying question, or question that gets more understanding, that brings them into a place where they can explain what they're saying. Describe to me, let me know. My favorite one is, let me into your world. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. Just you're asking those questions to get a bit more understanding for where that person is. If you're going to say a statement, you are already missing the person. Okay. Another example of this. Okay, so men talking literally. An example we've got here is a woman might say, I feel like you don't listen to me, and the man will say, I do listen. You said you were upset about your work, and I told you to talk to your boss. Yeah. How many times has that happened? You know what I mean? Like, where someone says something like that, like a friend, your partner might say to you, Caroline is been moving mad all week. I just feel like she's just disrespectful. Daga, daga, daga. And you'll be in your head saying, well, just get rid of Caroline then. She doesn't need to be your friend. And you've missed it. Caroline isn't what she's talking about. She's talking about her emotions and her feelings, yeah? She doesn't want the solution at that point in time. So when she's here talking about how Caroline pisses her off, and how she pissed off the group chat, and how she said all of this stuff, she's not asking for you to say, well, then get rid of Caroline. What she's asking for is for you to have some understanding. I was like, oh, okay, what's going on? Okay, talk to me. How are you feeling about that? Where are you guys standing now at the friendship? You know what I mean? Like, asking questions to further the conversation, to further the understanding, to further the validation of her emotions. That is what she's requiring, okay? So the man is taking her words literally at face value and responding with a solution. And he interprets not listening as meaning he didn't hear or comprehend. So he's hearing a complaint, and he's hearing the person have an accusation against him, right? So when she says, I feel like you don't listen to me, what he's hearing is that you are accusing me, or you are criticizing me. That's what he's hearing. That's why he's getting his back against the wall. Do you see what I'm saying to you? That's why his back is against the wall. His back is against the wall because he's hearing the criticism rather than hearing the emotion expressed behind it, right? And this takes time to understand. When you spend time with women, you kind of get to know how they kind of talk, so you get a bit more of an understanding. But it's very difficult if you don't often spend time with women. Men don't talk like this. It's like, honestly, like, men don't talk like this. You know what I mean? So I genuinely understand why men can suffer in this area. It doesn't necessarily translate in the same way, right? So this is also important to understand for men. Okay, another example is that a woman might say, I had a stressful day, my boss was so unfair, and he was like, yeah, you should just quit, find another job. And it just seems so dismissive. And I think we were talking about this as well as a group yesterday behind the scenes, but this is something that we're talking about, how dismissiveness sounds like. It's not always that you are literally saying, it's not always that you're showing dismissiveness just by dismissing them, but just the mere response can sound very dismissive. He's not addressing the actual issue. So when she says, I had a stressful day at work, my boss was unfair, your next statement should be, so what happened? You should be intrigued. That's what she's saying. Be intrigued. You know what I'm saying to you? Get up in there and ask her some questions. What do you mean your boss was rude? What happened? You know what I'm saying? She wants you to grab the tea and the biscuits, okay, and ask her, so what happened? She wants you to indulge her, okay, all right? She wants you to indulge her. And, that's really important, okay? Now, for a lot of men, this might find frustrating because, again, the way that men communicate with other men is that we're not trying to have too many conversations that are very emotive and going nowhere, quote unquote, going nowhere. What I mean by that is, if it doesn't come down with a solution, why are we talking about it? You know what I'm saying to you? And so sometimes men can be very, very frustrated about those kind of conversations because it's like, it feels like, where's the conversation going? Like, is it, you don't want me to give a solution, but you're just banging on about the situation. Like, it requires a solution, but that's not how it works. For the women, that's not how it works. What they're looking for is an indulgence. Indulge them. Okay, all right. They're talking about how crazy a certain situation was, how annoyed they were about a situation. That is a great point now to be like, so what happened? Oh my gosh, like why did Kevin do that? Yeah, I'm trying to understand. So what's going on now? Like, is it what's happening now? What's the next steps? What's happening with them? You're asking questions. Okay, all right. You're asking questions. You're trying to show inquiry. You're inquisitive and you're inquiring. You know what I'm saying to you? Don't jump to the solution and fixing the problem. Be inquisitive and in having an inquiry in mind. Okay. Number two, emotive language by men. Right. So a man might say, "I love you so much. You mean everything to me." And he says this after she expresses doubt about their connection. So if she says something like, "I don't know if you love me," and then he goes, "But I love you so much," right? And he also does that at very key emotive times. So men try not to be too emotive all the time. So what you'll see is that men will choose very key moments. Okay, so they'll choose very key moments, but sometimes those key moments are too late. So let me give an example of that. It may be that you are at the tether of your relationship. Your girl's now telling you, I can't do this no more. This relationship, like, I'm done. And now you're saying, but I love you. It's like, bro, why didn't you say I love you a couple of weeks ago when she needed it? And that's at the end. It's at key moments, but that key moment might be at the very end of the relationship, or at the very, very, I would say, precarious times of the relationship, and that can be problematic as well. Okay, that can also be very problematic for the relationship, for you, for that other person as well. So just got to be very careful of that as well, right? Choosing key times is important, but know that the key time can't be at the end of the relationship. You know what I'm saying to you? All right, cool. The next step we're talking about is, another example is this. A man might say, "This makes me so angry. I hate when people don't respect me." Now, men are more likely to express emotions tied to actions. I think that men tend to try and express anger because it's less vulnerable, it seems. And it doesn't show that you're quote unquote weak, because we often associate anger with fighting. We often associate anger with the expression of anger in a very unique way, right? So for instance, when we get angry, we might shout or scream. It projects some level of strength by doing this kind of behavior. But what they don't realize is anger doesn't have to be expressed in that way. It's not always explosive. It can be implosive. And also, anger doesn't mean that I have to also action an expression that is going to be quote unquote violent. You know what I'm saying to you? Again, an expression of strength. It doesn't have to be. Okay? So oftentimes anger can be easier to express for men because, again, it's about their competencies, about their respect, but doesn't always allow them to be able to express the vulnerability, right? Okay. Another example of this is, I put here, why does this happen? And I think this really simply put is, the reason why this happens is because men prioritize efficiency and solutions, believing that words should have a clear purpose. Now, I've seen this comment here, which I think is really good. She said, said, "As a solution-focused woman, I can see how dismissive my solution-seeking incombers can seem, abrasive and distant. So now I ask before the start of the conversation, do you want me to listen or to help?" And I think this is really important. Okay? Really important, because this particular behavior can happen in both men and women, but it oftentimes happens in men. But when we see, women also experience this too. If you're a woman who oftentimes, one, yes, solution orientated, but I also find that women who work in very male dominated industries. Number two, I have a woman who've also come in homes where their own emotions were dismissed, and they had to be either maybe the breadwinner, they were parentified, have got avoidant attachment styles. If they got avoidant attachment styles, they've had to be parentified in their household, like be a breadwinner financially or emotionally. They weren't allowed to have their own emotions in a situation. You'll find those women tend to have very, what we call solution-orientated mindsets. So fearful, avoidant, and dismissive avoidant women tend to have these mindsets very similar to men, because the men are also avoidant. You know what I'm saying to you? Where they're very solution-orientated. Because, again, like I said, the feminine and the masculine energy, feminine energy is often best worked within the confinements of the masculine energy that protects it. So masculine energy is oftentimes about protection. It's about provision, but it's also about execution. It's about solutions. It's about being driven. It's about being a problem solver, right? It's about those things. Whereas the feminine is about the creativity, is about the creation, is about the receiving, is about the loving and the caring and the emotion aspect, the nurturing. And we need both, by the way. Men and women need both. But we carry more depending on what you are. If you're a man, you carry more masculine. If you're a woman, you carry more feminine, usually, right? But when there's an inverse, know that something has happened in childhood. The environment, your upbringing has inversed you. So that's why you're carrying more of the, you see men who might carry more feminine traits or women that carry more masculine traits in the sense of the energy that is perpetrated, right? In this instance, being very solution orientated. So that's why you're seeing that from women who say to you that they are very solution orientated and they actually find it difficult amongst other women because those women are not solution orientated. They are emotional orientated. So you might find yourself, difficultly for women specifically, you might find yourself amongst amongst women, but you get on better probably with men because those men understand the language you're speaking. You might find it a little bit more difficult to congregate with women because those women tend to make everything very emotive and use emotional nuance, but you are very literal because of what you experienced. So you'll find that it can be very difficult to be around other women who play in very feminine traits or energy, sorry, I should say rather, because of the language that they utilize. You don't use the same language. And the same happens for men. That's why some men can hang around more women because of the way they grew up, their emotions, they're able to understand emotional nuance. Be able to understand that the language that's been spoken isn't necessarily literal. And it's because of the way they grew up and who they grew up with. So men who grew up with other women, right? So you see that same kind of perspective. So it's about understanding how you're operating based on what you've experienced as well. Okay, so this is not to shame anybody, it's more just explaining the behavior that happens for both men and women in those particular spaces as well. Okay, going on. The female perspective again, so we're going to go to this part, the emotive language. So like a woman might say, I feel like you don't love me anymore, and a man will say, of course I love you. what makes you say that? Or he might say, why are you saying that? And for the woman, this isn't literal. She's saying this. She's saying something. It feels like you stopped loving me, right? Instead, she really is expressing her feelings and that there may be a disconnect in a relationship and neglect. So rather than saying literally, you've neglected me, I'm unappreciated. She's gonna say something like, it feels like you don't love me, or it feels like you stopped caring about me. And really and truly, what she's really expressing once more again is that she feels that something's not quite right in the relationship. There's a disconnect, there's unappreciation, there's some neglect, something's not going correctly. And so she's bringing that to the table. Okay? All right? But this can also, like I said, elicit a defensive response from the man because he's thinking that she's speaking literally rather than actually now understanding that she needs reassurance. And we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, right? I spoke about this when I said that as a man, just allow if you're dealing with a woman that you're specifically dealing with, allowing that woman to have a moment where she might, quote unquote, throw a temper tantrum. No, okay, let me put that correctly. Allowing a woman to have a moment where she is dramatic, quote unquote, to say, don't regulate it. You know what I'm saying to you? Let her have a moment, let her calm down, and she'll come back to you. The same way I say about women allowing men to have space and come back. That woman having that dramatic moment is important because she's exercising her emotions and her feelings. But if you try to police it, you're now telling her how to feel. Now, you just got to be very careful. Now, you don't have to, I'm not saying to you that accept any kind of behavior. What I'm saying to you is understand that, create the safe space. We saw this on Love is Blind with Daniel and Taylor, an example again. I think I'll do a separate video for that as well. But it's just another great way of being able to allow her to have the room and the space to emote. And then when she finally calms down and the emotional arousal, begins to simmer, you will have that person back again. And they'll feel much more safer with you, right? So it's just a case of, again, understanding where your partner's coming from. All right, example 2. A woman might say, you never take me out anymore. And the man will be like, that's not true. We just went out a couple of days ago or 2 weeks ago. Right? Remember I said I don't like the word never, ever, forever. I don't like those words. They don't work. They're not good. They don't help people. Never, ever, forever is always problematic because people start to clinch onto that particular never and they fight you on the never. Okay? All right? So then you never take me out anymore. It's not a literal statement. It's not a literal statement. It's her being emotive once more again. Okay? The woman isn't keeping literal records of their outings. She's expressing a need for more quality time. Okay? So the man is but the man takes her words on face value and is taking it literally. Okay? And saying that she's factually incorrect rather than emotionally expressing in a need. Which is why when we have debates, and I'm talking about debates, you can't do the emotive language. You have to talk directly. This is what it means directly. Okay? We have to be direct in what we're saying in that space. That doesn't mean we can't allow for nuances. There should always be nuance, but there should be a directness in what you're saying in that space, right? But when you're dealing with your partner, understand that some of the language, okay, all right, the language is incorrect. You say never, he's always going to fight you on the never because he thinks it's being literal. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, Asia James to come up. Let me know. Okay. Okay. So, again, from a woman's perspective, for the men, women express emotions to be understood, not necessarily to get a solution. When they say things like never, you never listen or you don't love me, they aren't making literal accusations. They're expressing how they feel in that particular moment. Okay, all right? So let them have it. Women also expect men to pick up the non-verbal cues and also nuances in their emotive language. Okay? And it's funny because I'm thinking about this now in my past and going back to my, back in my, I would say, childhood. Not in childhood, some of my arguments I've had with other women in the past. And, I do remember some of those moments where you're like, you don't love me, you don't care about me, and your immediate thought process is to immediately attack them. It's like, what do you mean I don't love you, I don't care about you? Did I not take you out? Did I not buy this? Did I not tell you I loved you the other day? You immediately attack it because that's you feel like you're being accused in that moment. And so the male aspect is that you're feeling that you're being criticized in that moment, and your immediate thing is to defend yourself because it's not correct. But what you have to do is listen. Now, this is very difficult for a lot of men because, again, it's like, why do I have to do that? But you have to remember, if we're saying that women should submit, then the Bible says, dwell with women according to knowledge. I believe that men are leaders. Okay, I don't know what other people think about, but I believe that men are called to be leaders. I believe the Bible tells us that men should dwell with women according to knowledge, which means I must find knowledge about how I need to dwell with you. If I'm having to dwell with you, I need to understand how you're coming to me. So if I understand how you behave and how you move, I can then begin to lead correctly. So when that woman is accusing me now, I'm not going to see it as an accusation. I'm now going to say, there's more. I need to ask more questions. Why is it that you feel that way? You said I don't listen to you. Why is it that you are feeling like I don't hear you? You know what I'm saying to you? What is it that you're feeling right now? You know what I'm saying to you? Like, oh, I don't take you out. I thought we went out last week, but maybe I'm missing something. Please let me know. What is it you're actually feeling? It's getting to the heart of the feelings. If we know that women are very quote unquote emotive and they're always emotional, then you should know how that we should speak to them on an emotional plane. If you're trying to understand them, you're gonna have to try and come and to their plane and understand where they're coming from. Okay, all right. And so the root of miscommunication is that men take words literally, and again, they don't do the indirects. But as I said, this is a table. I've already spoke about this, so I won't go too deep into it. We've discussed this already. And I've discussed this as well. It's just a table. Okay, so how we miss each other. Okay, how we miss each other is that men and women often miss each other based on their intentions, okay? Because they process communication differently. For example, like I said before, a man might get frustrated because he feels like he's constantly being accused of things and taking statements literally. And a woman might feel unheard because she feels like he's fixing everything. That's where you're going to miss each other, okay? So final point on this is you've got to ask the questions. You've got to ask those questions. You've got to be able to ask more inquiring questions of people. Now, for the ladies specifically, because I spoke a lot about the men asking inquiry, you got to be more direct, okay? If you want the pancakes, don't be like, if a man loves me, he would share. Stop that. Just say you want the last pancake piece, all right? I've seen this too many times. Like, women will try to test the man in a sense. It's like, just be literal. Okay, all right. You're eating your food, and it's like the last. Let's say you're sharing food. It's the last piece on the plate, and she's like, oh, you eat the last piece, and she's like, oh, if you love me, but you what, whoa. If you want the last piece, darling, take the last piece. Let's not make this into a situation. Take the last piece. If you want it, say, babe, I really want that last piece. But you don't want to seem like you're greedy, and you don't want to seem like you're selfish. You don't want to seem like a biggie back. Baby, stop. No one's thinking that. We're not thinking that at all. Stop trying to think for us. Just say you want that last piece. Right? But you want us to offer it to you. So it's like, he loves me because, and it stops you from feeling so bad. Listen, you want it, just say you want it. Be direct. Okay? All right? If you know your back's not big, don't worry about it. Why you know what I'm saying to you? Stop thinking about that. Just be direct. You want the piece of cake, and it's the last piece of cake, and you want it, say you want it. Don't be like, I wanted him to offer it to me. Stop it. Stop it. Just say you want the last piece of cake. Right? Just say it. Because what you're about to go to next is about you're about to accuse him of not loving you, not caring about you. If he cared about me, he would offer that last piece to me. Stop it. Okay? Just like I said to the men, stop that. You know you have to be able to inquire. You know that you have to be able to understand her emotively. Women too, I want you to understand. Be direct, be literal. Okay? All right? Be direct, be literal, because they're also the other side is that they are feeling like it's an accusation. Okay? Yeah, you want a last piece of cake? Take it. Just say, hey, babe, I'm going to have this last piece of cake. Is that okay? That's it. You know what I mean? There's no point. Someone said I want the whole cake, you know? Okay, so it really did come from a movie. And a lot of times there's a lot of movies that are misleading in terms of what romance really is. You know what I'm saying to you? Someone said romance is dead. I hear it. Romance is dead. So ask for that piece of cake. Okay? Ask for that piece of cake. Just like consent is sexy, asking for that piece of cake is also sexy. Ask for that last piece of cake. Don't be just, expecting me to be that cake, okay? All right? So for men, if she says something vague, don't assume, ask what she means. If she's upset, instead of fixing it, just say, I hear you, and tell me more. Okay? For the women, be more direct, expressing emotions. Instead of you say, you never listen to me, be honest and say, listen, it seems like it feels like you're distant, or I feel distant, or I'm feeling like we're not as connected. Be honest, okay? All right. So I wanted to be able to offer this because I know we've got a few minutes. I want to offer this as well. If you're someone, because someone put a little comment in the chat, and I've got about 15 minutes left. If you want to just, if you have an inquiry, or you have, maybe you have a dilemma. I'll put a link in the chat if you want to just come and ask me a question. I got like 15 minutes before I got to get off. I got to go for a run, which I did not go for this morning. I didn't wake up till 4 o'clock this morning, so it's crazy. If you have a dilemma or a question you want to ask me, I've got 15 minutes. I'm going to leave it there for you guys. Someone asked, when did I get the slides from? I created them myself. They're my slides. And the pictures are also mine as well. So they're my own creation. So it's through my studies, and then I obviously just turn it into information, and I did this slides myself as well. So yeah, if you want the notes, let me know. But I ain't giving it away for free, okay? Because it's hard-earned notes. If you want the notes, 2 ways to do it. You can join by going on. If you go onto YouTube and you join the Our Hero membership, then I'll put the notes on there. Or join a Patreon. I think it's the £10 level. I'll put the notes on there as well. So, because this is the first series, so I'll put the notes on there as well. Okay. So so On Brand asks when Love Is Blind is on. It's on a Sunday. It's on a Sunday. Yeah. So if you want the notes, let me know, and we can send that to you. It's not a problem at all. So let me leave it as that. So yeah, so my ending notes on this is, again, please first of all like, share, subscribe. If you haven't done so already as well, I'll put a link in the chat to subscribe to our other channel we've got going on as well, because this is where we're doing it. We're doing it with LBB coaching. Okay, so if you've got any questions, I would like to have him so I can actually start doing videos for you guys as well, so you guys know exactly where we're kind of coming from. You know what I mean? Like, and we can start answering some stuff. Okay, so let me put a link in the chat for you guys. Okay, all right. Join the other channel. Okay, so if you guys can do me a massive favor, if you haven't done so already, just click on the link and subscribe to my other channel, LBB Coaching. I'll do this for a few weeks on Little Black Book, but eventually I will go into LBB Coaching channel and do this solely on there. So if you haven't done so already, please do click on that link and subscribe to that channel for me as well. We're going to be part of some more content as we go along this year as well. There'll be more stuff that will be coming out as well for you as well. Someone said some proof going still. This is for the African American Studies HBC course lesson plan. Jay said, you say be honest, but how much more honesty I need? Well, Jay, use the link and come and ask me the question. You get what I'm saying to you? How about that? If Jay would come up here and just explain. Jay, how about you come and explain so they can you can have a conversation and explain it so that people can understand where you're coming from, Jay. Let me know. Okay. Someone said I'm here for the carnage. We're here to grow and be better and healed, guys. Okay. We're here to be healed. Okay. We want to be healed. We don't want to be in the place where we've always been. Okay. But yes, if you've got any questions, please let them in the chat, or rather yet, you can join the link and then the conversation. Okay, Jay, thank you. All right, Jay, go for it.
Sorry, I had to pause the live in the background before I got the echo. But yeah, you saying be honest or whatever stuff. And like, I'm very honest, nigga. You don't listen. Excuse my French, but but you don't listen. So what? Is that too honest? Am I too blunt? Because I get frustrated. You're muted, I think.
Sorry, my headphones wasn't on. I apologize. Say it again. What you said, Jay. Go for it. Sorry.
I said, I'll be very honest, nigga, you don't listen. Excuse my French, but you don't listen. So I'm just saying, like, what more honesty I need to be? Like, I'm more direct. I'm speaking your language now. I'm very direct. You don't listen.
Yes, listen, look, I think the first part, the nigga part, might trigger some people, but I hear what you're saying. So you're saying, obviously, when you, let's say, for instance, something happens, you're saying, hey, nigga, you don't listen.
Yeah.
That's what you're describing. Okay.
Yeah, but that part, I think, gets come out of frustration at the part. But a lot of times it's just, you don't listen. Sometimes it's the nice way. It's, you don't listen, babe. Babe, you know, you don't listen. I be talking and you don't listen.
I get you. What and without obviously having to expose yourself or anything, let's give an example. What would let's say, for example, what would they not be listening to?
It's various things or whatever, but we can have conversations, and so it'll be, say something like, say some stuff happened or whatever, and so we're having a conversation about something that may have happened. I'm trying to give a hypothetical. Something that might have happened in the thing or whatever. Say it's like, oh, you know, Kojo was saying about this happened, and you know, this thing or whatever. And the next day it'll be, Kojo said something about something. It's like, yeah, I just said that though. You know what I'm saying? Or I'll say something right. No, let me give a better example, because this is really does happen a lot of times. Is hey, babe, can you grab that red thing over there, right in front of you? What thing are you talking about? That red thing right there in front of you. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't see it.
What is the red thing? I'm now thinking to myself, what the heck is this red thing?
I'm just trying to make up something. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, it's just, you know what I'm saying? It'd be like that type of stuff. It's just like, I literally will say what it is or whatever it is I'm talking about in the beginning. You know, it's almost like a disclaimer. But all of that will go out the window by the time the question is asked. I don't know what you're talking about. I just said that. Sometimes it'd be like in our Bible talks. We'll be having Bible talk on what things or whatever. And say some, okay, God said to do this and that or whatever and whatever. And they say, no, it is. It's hard to explain it right now because we're not having a literal conversation about what is some of the stuff we're talking about. But a lot of times I've already said what it is within my conversation. And when it comes back, it's like, here I am repeating myself. And I know I was like, I know it must be God working on my patience, and especially with repeating myself because I don't like repeating myself. But it just be frustrating me because it's just like, I just said that. I just said that. And it's not this person either. I've had this with another ex in the past. And I just came to realize, especially with that ex, sometimes it sounds better when somebody else said it. Because I would say something, and then about a month later, his friends would say something. And it'd be the same thing. But it seemed like it would register when they said it more so than when I said it. So it's like, it gets to the point where we start to say, and I'm going to say we as women, because I know a few women do go through this experience or whatever, where we feel like you're not listening to us. Or our men are not listening to us or whatever, is because it's just like, we're giving suggestions and we're saying ideas and things like that. But a lot of times it may not sound, it sounds like it's not sounding good out of our mouth, or it sounds better out of somebody else's, or that man's mouth better than ours. And so therefore it frustrates us because it's kind of like, so you're invalidating what I say or think or feel or whatever over other people, but I'm your partner.
Okay, no, that's a fair point. I think that's a very fair point. I think in that situation, I can understand the gripe and the frustration if you're having to explain it and the person's not necessarily listening. I think the key thing is that I think everyone listens. I think comprehension is a big thing, right? So let's go maybe to your original situation, and I'm going to add a lot of variables and contextual aspects in this situation. So let's say the red cup. Let's say the red cup's on the table. So if you ask me for the red cup, okay, let's say you say, "Hey, babe, can you grab the red cup on the table?" When you're asking what's going on around you at that time and that moment for you, you know what I mean? Not for just for you, but for the other person too. What is the context of the situation, right? Because sometimes the contextual situation, the timing and the season can also affect when someone is comprehending, or rather I should say, trying to fully understand you. Because they heard you, but it's a comprehension aspect, or is the understanding aspect that usually comes from it that is very difficult. So I always say that there's a need to also look at the timing and the season of when that information is also delivered. And as we said beforehand as well, depending on what the situation was. Okay, let's stick with the cup because I don't want to go any further. Let's work with the cup. Okay, so in that situation that you gave Jay, is the other person doing something at that moment? Are they preoccupied? Are they, when I say preoccupied, are they preoccupied? Are they doing something? Are they watching a game? Are they doing something else other than just sitting there when you're asking that person for that?
So when a person's preoccupied, because I do know that, sometimes it takes a minute to process what was said to you, because I'm that type of person, especially early in the morning. So I don't pay attention to when it's just like, I don't have a problem repeating when it's you're doing something and I have to say it more than once in that thing. But I didn't want to take away the cup just because that one's kind of like a little easier one. But when we're
Okay, yeah.
literally having a conversation
Okay.
and we're both like engaged in the conversation, but I say something within the conversation, say I'm saying how, okay, so me and you're having this conversation right now and saying how this person didn't get the red cup. Okay, so we'll do it like that. So me and you're having a conversation. That person didn't get the red cup. 5 minutes into the conversation, it'll be, so did that person get the red cup?
So he actually wasn't listening.
Right.
Okay, so he wasn't listening. Yes, so they won't be able to give an answer because he wasn't listening, or at least they had tuned out for a process of time.
So those
Okay.
it'd be those type of things like that, little stuff back and forth, and it is just that's what provokes that statement. It's like you don't listen because it's like I done went through this whole story of telling you this whole story, and just for you to just come back to ask me the same questions that's already been explained in the story.
Okay.
And because I'm a little bit different than I'm not gonna say most women, but other women. I'm a little bit different than other women. I don't like to sit here and hash out all these variables of trying to just be understood in that manner. It's just I want to kind of get it out sometimes. And now that I got it out, now I got to repeat the story again because you weren't listening in the first place. It almost, to me, it's almost better that you just kept going and just not not even said that you wasn't listening to me, because now I'm frustrated because now it's like, damn, do I got to tell you the whole damn story again? Like, I'm trying to get it out so I don't have to relive it or whatever and stuff and deal with the emotions of it or whatever. But now you're not listening, so that's even more frustrating to me. So it goes back to that, well, my ninja, you're not listening. So why are we having conversations if you're just not going to listen to me in the first place? And I mean, it goes back to us, yes, wanting to be understood, but I think for me, that's the most frustrating part of conversation is you're sitting here talking, but that other person is just really not listening to you. It's to me, it makes me think of, you're in your head going, did I leave the iron on? What I'm going to eat later on while I'm talking?
I appreciate you sharing that, actually, because actually it's making me think a little more deep about the situation. So what you described, I think, is really interesting because the person had probably got lost along the way. So let's work it backwards, almost in a sense, right? So the end goal, what is the end goal? When you say he's not listening, what is the end goal for Jay when you're like having this conversation and because obviously we're quite similar, Jay, so that's why I'm saying that I understand you a bit more. So, and I know obviously how we are, right? Quite empathetic, and we are always willing to be there for other people. So I know how it can be even more impactful and painful when you are giving so much and not necessarily receiving. So in that space, let's say, what is the end goal? When you say you want him to listen, right? Without making it about anybody else, what is the end goal for Jay? Let's say you come and tell the story to me. Let's say you come and tell me the story. What do you want me to do? What would make you feel like I'm listening to your story?
Just validating what you heard. Like right there, validating what you heard. I don't need no solutions or anything. Like I said, that's why I said I'm like a different from thing, because sometimes I just need it to vent. I just need it off my chest or whatever. Like one thing, because you were saying something earlier and he overheard something that you were saying or whatever, and he was like, "Yeah, I ask questions." I said, "No, you don't." I said, "No, you don't. You don't ask questions. You go straight into making a joke or clowning about the situation." Like when I used to work at my old job or whatever and stuff like that, I was like, you go straight into talking ish. That's your thing. You don't ask questions on it, like what happened and none of that stuff. You just jump straight into talking ish. No, I don't know. Babe, I just told you what you do. You can't tell me what my experience with this was with you. You don't ask no questions about it. I said, you will ask the questions after you see my face expression. But even initially, you're jumping straight into talking mess or whatever and stuff. And it's just like, sometimes I don't even want you to say, I just want you to be quiet. Let me say what I got to say. And then I move on. Because a lot of times I don't even talk about work when I come home. I don't talk about none of this stuff when I come home. So if I'm talking about it, it's kind of like I just need it off of me because it irritated me for the day. I don't need it. I don't need the problem solved. I don't need nothing. I just need you to just be a sounding board for a second. Nothing more, nothing less.
No, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. So when you're finally ready to kind of have that conversation, you want to be able to share what's going on with you. Is like you don't often, and I think this is where we're to start from. For you specifically, you don't often talk about things that are affecting you. So there's going to be an even greater weight on the moment that you start having a conversation about how you feel or what's going on with you, because already you don't talk about it often, right? You kind of keep it to yourself. You handle your own problems. You want to be able to deal with self. So it's almost like there's going to be an even greater expectation on him without him even knowing. He doesn't know this. Only you know this. So when you come to a conversation, there's a greater expectancy and a greater weight on that conversation, because in that place, you need that conversation to be like, okay, this is the one time I'm asking you for help. This is what, and essentially what you're actually saying is, this is the one time I'm asking you for help. And when they don't do exactly what you needed, in that end, all you're gonna say, God damn, I needed you for what, 35 minutes? Just 35 minutes. You can't even do, and then your frustration is gonna be, they can't even do that for that one time of you. But actually, I think we spoke about this before, Jay, because me and you are very similar. The part of the issue is also because you don't share often, right? So there's so much weight now on that conversation. What I would say is, at the beginning of that conversation, there is a need to level set the conversation for the other person, right? There's a need to level set the conversation to say, listen, have you got the time today to have, I just need you for a good 20 minutes just to hear me out. And anytime you feel like you don't understand something or you're not hearing me, which I think is also another aspect, and I know there's a lot of work I'm putting onto you, but it's also part of it too, is that anytime you're not hearing me or anything you don't understand, just stop me and ask me, so that I don't have to repeat myself, because there's a lot that I want to be able to share, and it can be a little bit stressful having to repeat it. You know what I'm saying to you? Because sometimes even me, I don't always hear what everyone's saying. Like, if you watch me live, sometimes when I see the what do you call it, the interviews, sometimes I'm there, but sometimes I'm like, blood, I'm losing like track of the conversation. Like, and sometimes I find it because of the last thing they said. And so I asked a question on the last thing they said, but I've lost what they said. I mean, it happens a few times, not many times, but still, it takes an intense amount of concentration. So maybe that person's only got like a 15-minute or 20-minute span of concentration, and they need to build up that space for that conversation. I hope that makes sense. But first, just tell me what you're saying.
It makes a lot of sense. I think what I assume, and I'm gonna say it like that. I assume once the person asks, "How was your day?" They're in a space to hear, "How was my day?" or whatnot.
Okay.
So yeah, I hear what you're saying or whatnot. So it's gonna just make me go back to how I used to treat when people want the truth, and I'd be like, "You sure you want the truth?" All right. So I'll try. I'll work on that. I won't say I won't. I'll try. I'll work on that aspect of setting that boundary. Like, do you really want my day? Do you really want to hear what was on my day? Because when they ask me how was your day, it's like, oh, good. Let me share. Because otherwise, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to share. I'm not going to just come in and just dump on you. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to, you know what I'm saying? But when you ask me or whatever, and it's been, because most of the time it's a good day and that's it. Oh, the day was straight. That's it. But you would have them days. It's just like, oh my gosh, this person today. Whew, I need to just talk about this one right here, because this one just really frustrated, makes absolutely no sense or whatever and stuff. And it's like, I'm not going to say it's every single time, because sometimes the tea would just be good and they be invested into the tea of it all. But
the tea be hitting sometimes. That's one of my favorite things about having a girlfriend. I don't have one, but they tell you the goss. It's like, this is part 5. Sorry.
You can be looking for it when you come home the next day. So nothing happened today, what they do. But yeah, okay. I'll try to keep, and I'm not try. I'll keep that in mind. Expand when they ask me how was my day, I can't just dump. I got to make sure that they are really in the space for that. All right, I'll work on it.
Now, you said something really interesting. When you said it, it hurts my ears, because again, I know we're very similar. So when you said it, it was interesting. You said, do you want to hear about my day, really? And that question actually isn't for them. It's actually for you. The do you want is almost like you trying to, how do I say this? It's like you're almost waiting for the green light, but in a sense of like the validation of the green light. So before you even got to the conversation, that question is actually a validating question. It's actually not, it's not just about you being able to speak. It's about whether they really care about wanting to actually hear what you got to say. And I think that plays a part in the way that, because the way that you chose the wording was, do you? I'm going to go back to do you said, rather than saying, can I share? Because the do you is like almost asking, like, you're almost trying to validate, like, do you really care? It's like you want to almost ask that question, like, does he really care? Do you really care about hearing about my day? Rather than saying, listen, he does care about my day because he cares about you. But you went to, does he really care about me and does he care about my day? Rather than just saying, actually, he must care. I want to share though. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense.
No,
I know what I'm trying to say, but maybe the
that's
words are
actually the
not.
factual truth. That's why I say it like
Okay.
that. Like that, like when I say with the honesty part, is more so for that person because it's like for the honesty, are you in a space to handle what I'm about to tell you? But when it comes to me sharing, yes, it is more so about do you really want to hear what I got to say right now? Because I don't want to waste my time saying this conversation just for me having to repeat it again because now I done got the weight off of me now. I don't want to relive what I'm going through again. So yes, it is more so for me. It is, are you really going to listen to me? Because that's what I'm asking for right now. So yeah, it is a do you care? Do you care to listen? Do you care to be silent and pay attention right now? So yeah.
So obviously, if you ask me that question, I'm going to be like, yeah, sure, I do. Of course, I do care. And I'm probably going to ask probably a few more questions, like, what's really going on with you, Jay? Why are you asking me, do you care? Like, I'm going to probably, because that's my natural disposition, right? But I also realize that that is not a lot of men's disposition, all right? Like, as soon as you hear, do you care? The first thing he's going to do is take your question outside of your question. He's going to hear, do you care? Oh man, she's on the trip. She's on that again, bro. She just wants. That's where his brain is going to. Is that you're already start. The question has an accusation label to it. You're like, do you really care? Like, even though you didn't say, do you care? You said, actually, are you ready? Almost like, are you really ready to listen? He's already hearing another. He's hearing something else. He's hearing the accusation. He's hearing the criticism. He's hearing that Jay is about to get at me. Even though the story's about you, he's still hearing that because the do you comes with that label for them. So that's why I said about the do you. It is, and I know because I know what it means for you. I can go past it and be like, hey, no, Jay, what's really going on? Like, what's up with you? You know what I mean? Like, that's my natural disposition. But that's not gonna necessarily be his position because what we're actually doing is we're questioning him rather than actually saying like, is it a good time? Like, I don't know how to explain this in the right way. The words I want to be careful. The do you okay? So Elsa put here, do you have the capacity? So do you have the capacity? Even that question, when you say, do you have the capacity? It's almost questioning as if you don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, listen, I want to be able to share with you. It's not about whether you're the capacity. Like, you know what I'm saying to you? Like, the do you is almost like, it has an accusation almost labeled with it. That's what I'm trying to say, for the men anyway, specifically. But I would understand what you're saying. It's more, that's why I try to say, is it the right time for you to have a conversation with me? Right? Because it doesn't have anything. It's just about the timing of the conversation rather than it's the do you, like do you have the time for me? It's like you're already it's almost coming with an accusation already. Rather, it's just
But
like, oh yeah, go for it.
wouldn't it still come off like an accusation even if the person asks you how was your day and then you reply, do you have the time? Would it still sound like
Yeah,
that to you?
yeah. When you say do you have the time, it's still gonna come off as accusation. It's a do you. It's the word do you.
Well, okay, wait, how did you just say it just now?
It's rather just saying, is it do you? No, I mean, do you?
Is
I
it the
said, what did I
right
say?
time for you?
Is it
But see,
yeah? Is it the right time for you to have the conversation?
but wouldn't that still sound like an accusation? Because at the end with the for you, is it the right time? Because they just ask, how was your day? And then you reply, is this the right time for you? It's you still putting like the onus on that person, in my opinion. And I
Yeah,
know what you're saying because I know how this person is. That person would, I know that person would take it just how you said he'll take it in his head or whatever and stuff. Like I already know we're about to go into a blame thing or whatever, and it's like it's not even that or whatnot. But yeah, it's still. I know it's like the wording. I just it's almost no way around it. Sometimes it feels like it's no catch 22. Damned if I do, damned if I don't situation. You know what I'm saying? Like if I don't ask, then we might have the problem of you not listening because your capacity is just not there right now. Your time, whatever else you got going on is just not there right now. Or if I do ask, now you feeling like I'm blaming you for not before we even get there. So yeah, it's gonna be the wording for me of how to work that out.
so the other so and obviously, like, again, do you's not necessarily the baddest thing. It may be the tone as well that may come with it as well. I think also, like I said, because as well these conversations, right? These conversations come up. They're quite heavy in terms of the weight, because especially if already, Jay, you're quite an empathic person. You're taking a lot of energy out through the course of the day and the week, and there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. You know what I'm saying to you? So even the question itself will come with an expectation of weight with it. The person can sense that. You know what I'm saying to you? And so that can be read in the question in the way that it's delivered. That's what I was saying about the maybe I was hearing the tone rather than the actual words. Do you? In that space, as I was saying, maybe I was hearing more the tone. I mean, I was hearing that. I was like, okay, I know how it's gonna sound, but I know that if you say that to me, I'm gonna be like, all right, come, let's talk, because it sounds like you really got a lot on your chest. But I know for other men that may be a little bit heavy for them. So that's why I was saying it is it, but necessarily it's not always about the wording. Sometimes it is a tone. And I think what I was working with that is that sometimes it is the practice of being able to share. So there may be a case for you because you don't actually share a lot. You may have to practice sharing, like either a voice note or writing it down, so that the energy that you have, because when you're coming into it, you're going to have an energy. And I'm not talking about rude, I'm talking about weighty, because you'll carry a lot, Jay. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of women carry a lot because they are taking in a lot through the course of the day and the week. So when they finally get to the man, that weight, he can feel the weight, even in the question and the way you're asking it. So there may be a case of, there may be time where you may need to actually be able to share some things that are outside of him, like writing a letter, or I'm gonna say letter, I mean, it's writing out how you feel or saying how you feel into a voice note, so that you actually release some of the energy that's coming from that feeling that you're having before you get to the other person. Just to be able to get more, I like to say, more confidence in sharing, because the confidence I'm talking about here is confidence in sharing it in a way that doesn't have so much weight behind it, because you're going to have weight because you're carrying a lot and you always hold a lot. So when you're finally sharing, it's like, I'm finally sharing, nigga, don't fuck this up. Do not fuck this up. I am finally sharing. You got a piece of me that I don't usually share. So Negro, sit down and listen. That's that weight that's coming with it. You know what I mean? That's the weight that comes with it sometimes, where he may not be able to contain that energy. So you may have to write it out or just speak it out first, so that you get to a place where it's like, oh, now I can tell the story in a different way. The same way, like, you got some things in your life that you've gone through. You can tell the story in another way now, because you've said it a few times. It's like, it's not like it's water for ducks back. It's more of a case of I can say it in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's funny enough because I already be saying it 1,000 times in my head already before. Because most of the time, well, Coach, we don't have people to get it off of all the time. We don't have places to outlets, so we have to be our own outlet a lot of times. So it's just like you say it, you go replay the stuff in your head so many times that by the time I get home, it's like I don't even need to talk about it no more. A lot of times. And so sometimes there's times I do need to talk about it. It's already been said so many times that it's not going to be like this super, super bad thing, unless like it was something tragic or bad that happened that really pissed me off or whatever. I think like a lot of that was like, especially towards the end of that particular job, it would be more of that type of weight. But a lot of times the weight is not that heavy anymore. By the time I get home, it's just a matter of, I don't want to have to repeat a lot of the stuff I said already. So I just want you to just follow me as I tell the story. I'm not rushing through the story. I'm trying not to rush through the story. I'm trying to breathe through it so you can hear me out or whatever. And things. I just need you to be paying attention to the fact that this is what I'm saying, so you don't be repeating. If you're you're repeating to validate, that's one thing, but you're repeating to like sit there because you missed something. Wait. So this never happened. That's the one thing. But literally just to be like, what happened to that though? Babe, I said that 10 minutes ago. We're on a whole nother part of this story right now. Like I would prefer you to stop me back then and be like, let me get the clarity then or whatnot. I think that's where a lot of my issue be. It's probably just me on the way I communicate or whatever. And it definitely stems from my childhood personally. because I was not heard. I didn't have a voice growing up. It was taken away from me at one point, and then it was just overshadowed by everybody else's later on. So I just didn't have a voice. And so for me, it's just like, when I speak, I need you to listen. I need my space right now. So just listen to me. So when you welcome me into speaking, it's nothing more frustrating to be welcomed into speaking and then just to realize the person's not listening to you.
Which makes absolute sense, and I think a lot of people are through this. I myself am the exact same way, so I understand where you're coming from, and so that's what makes it difficult, and that's why I said about the weight that you'll come into a conversation with and the expectation, because Jay, if he comes to you, you are going to be attentive for the next however long he needs, because you actually understand the pain of not being heard. So you actually have, it's almost like we always say in the UK, they have this argument, I'm sure it has in America too, but that argument that when immigrants come, right, them people work like there's no tomorrow. Yeah, when the Polish people come, the Eastern Europeans come, they will work you off the bone. Like, you can't compete with them. It's because they have a different expectation and different experience of life, what they've come through. So they're able to have a different motivation. So when Jay's listening to him, you can give him 2-3 hours, and you would be paying attention to every single detail, because you are operating with him as you'd want someone to operate with you. The problem is he does not have the capacity to operate with you the same way. If I was to put you in my chair, Jay, and I was to make you interview people, you would be able to follow their story for the next 4 hours. I know you joke around and say you don't, but you would be able to, because you understand the pain of somebody not listening to you. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Now, if I put Sean or Seaway, that might be a different story. Love them, but that's not how they operate, right? As
soon as they start crying, Seaway checking out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They'll be like, oh, I'm out. Or the story doesn't make sense, they're out. But because you have that motivation of what you've experienced of not being heard, you have a greater capacity, because your muscles have actually stretched to that place where you can listen to someone for hours on end and pay attention and ask questions. And you're basically a therapist for a lot of people, Jay. Like, you're going to ask questions like a therapist. That's what I said. I could swap my position with you and feel comfortable that you would ask the right questions, Jay, because that is who you actually are and what you've experienced. But other people do not have that. And that's the difficult part. So we have to work with their capacity. So whereas you can talk to me for an hour or two, like we're doing right now, I can follow you as many times as we go. I'm going to hear you, and I'll pick it up and I'll go with you. But with other people, unfortunately, we're going to have to slow it all the way down. We're going to have to do things that we never have to do with other. You're going to have to do things with him that you wouldn't have to do with me. You don't have to ask me, do you understand what I'm saying, coach? You don't have to say to me, at this conjuncture, okay, let me pause it here and say, so did you hear what I said? Like, did you, if I'm not saying anything, just let me know. You don't have to do those things, because you know I'm going to follow you. Unfortunately, the person that you're also with, they're not going to follow you to that capacity. They don't have that level. I'm telling you that some people, and it's funny, because it's only when you kind of like talk to people more and you hear them, like, they actually can't hear you for more than 5 minutes. They actually can't do it. After 5 minutes, they're tuning out. Their brain has gone onto the tuna sandwich. It's gone on to work. Whereas for you, that doesn't happen. So that is where the balance has to come in a sense of, a little bit of extra work on our part, unfortunately, that has to happen, where we have to be like, okay, listen. And I remember it happened to me the other time with this girl, and she said, oh, you speak long. And I was like, I was offended. I was like, do you not know you speak long? People don't realize they speak long because you're consistently listening to them. And then when you speak, they don't realize how long they speak for. So when they're now in a position of listening, because they don't often listen, they're like, damn, you speak long. No, you speak long. But when I'm speaking back the same way, you don't realize that's how long you speak. But I realize it's because their attention span doesn't go that far. And it's not because they don't like you or not trying to listen to you. They do not have the muscles for it. So we have to almost like give them 5 minutes, be like, okay, this is what I said, kind of pause it, stop it, like, are you following me? All right, cool, this is what happened, and then kind of move it again. So it's like, we're going to have intervals with people who haven't got the capacity for that, and kind of check in with them to make sure that they're actually with you on that conversation. Like, oh, you still hearing me? Okay, cool. You still understand what I'm saying to you? So that you don't get offended as well later on in the conversation when he brings up something fantastic. Because what he's actually saying to you is, at that conjuncture is when you stop listening. At that point is where the engine just went do do do, and it shut down. You know what I mean? Like, it's when it's shut down. And that's what offends you the most and offends me the most, is because why didn't you say anything? But he also realizes he shut down, and then when he comes back online again, he realizes the story has gone, and he doesn't want to offend it, but it's like, ah, damn, maybe she'll say something that will re-jog my memory of what she just said, but he can't because he never heard it.
Hmm.
He was never in that conversation for that, from 5 minutes onward to 7 minutes. He wasn't in it, and you know, so it's difficult for them. But yeah, talk to me. I'm listening to you, Jay.
Yeah, so I'm totally hearing what you're saying because it's true. I So because I do understand their upbringing, their childhood, all this stuff, because of course, listening to it and everything like that. Well, I think some of my struggle too is my mouth and not speaking in a tone, manner, and wording of which makes them feel belittled or condescending to them because of how they perceive life thanks to their childhood. Very smart, very educated, business savvy, just had a struggle upbringing or whatnot. Part of it, kind of like Les Brown, if you're familiar with his story, Les Brown's story of having teachers tell you you're not good enough, you're not capable of, or you won't be anything type story. Um, However, making yourself into somebody because one person believed in you type, that's his story is kind of similar to it or whatever, like teachers telling him he won't make this be amount to nothing, none of that stuff like that. So part of him be feeling some type of way like he's not educated enough because he didn't do the school, he got business, he does all this stuff good, does great for himself, but didn't finish school in this way or whatever. And it's just kind of like, babe, everybody is not book smart like that. You don't have to worry about it. That's not for everybody. Clearly, Steve Jobs and you have something in common or whatever and stuff. But when we have conversations, I know a lot of times when I say certain things like, are you still with me? Are you still listening? Or do you have that capacity? It almost makes him feel like I'm trying to say you're not smart enough for this conversation. So therefore, now even if I check in to say, are you still listening to me? I have to do it in a certain manner. I have to do it in a certain way so it doesn't feel like now I'm being attacked again because now I'm not listening. So it gets tricky. We've gotten better. I've told you about some of the conversations that we've been had to even get to a space to talk to each other of not being accusatory or whatnot and just have these hard conversations. So we've gotten a lot better, but it's still like a seesaw process of back and forth of trying to figure out what words can I use that don't trigger you, and in turn I don't get triggered because you're now triggered, or now you're saying something because I triggered you and now you're triggering me. So yeah, it gets a little tricky. It's gotten better, but yeah, it's been a process of just trying to figure it out. I mean, for me it helps because I do understand his background, but sometimes like even I'll say my the way I articulate sometimes could be a bit limited in the process or whatever. I probably need to read more than I have been lately. So, but yeah, I'm sorry because my face is feeling swollen again right now. So it's starting to irritate me.
Oh, babe, no worries about that. Come on, it's cool, no problem at all. No, I think you're sharing some real things, and I think this is like, again, this is it's so important to that process as well, because you're explaining real life examples and how difficult it can be where you do make adjustments, and sometimes those adjustments don't work or doesn't come to fruition or pass. So you're explaining some things there that are really important as well. And as you're talking, I was just also processing and thinking about some of the difficulties for people like ourselves, and other people like yourself as well, Jay, in the sense of, I was thinking back and I was like, okay, I remember a specific conversation with one of my ex-girlfriends, and I remember I told her a story. And I remember I was talking for I spoke for an hour and 10. I said, damn, I spoke for an hour and 10. That was long. And she followed me, and I was really grateful for that, right? But then I realized it's because I never told that story often. And so the necessity of the story was I needed to tell every single detail. The problem with that is telling every single detail at the time it meant so much to me to have every single detail. And I mean every single. I need to be like, wait, hold on. I just got back because the date on the 16th. I just remember it's like, oh my god, yeah. And then back on the 15th, that happened. Da, da, da. And because I haven't told a story often, I'm having to add every single detail because I want you to understand everything about me. And it's because I'm really fighting to be understood that I'm telling every part of the story. The good, the bad, the ugly, what I did wrong, what they did wrong, how my mama done told me this, how my dad done told me this. And I include about everybody's perspective in telling that story, right? And I'm saying that to say, when I did have that the first time, and I explained it to one of my first ever girlfriends, when I did explain the story the first time around, I explained the whole situation. That girl tuned out early. I'm sorry, she tuned out. She tuned out early. I remember we had several conversations where at one point she fell asleep and I was pissed off. There was another time where, like you just said, right? I explained the story and then she'll be like, but wait, what happened to this? I'm like, what do you mean, what happened to that? I've gone past that the point. Or I'll say it and it's gone over their head. I'm like, if you wanted to know, you should have asked me. Why do you mean you don't understand now? It's 10 minutes ago. Like, you know what I mean? But I started to realize after I started telling the story more, I had more patience for them. Because really and truly, the story wasn't about me telling you the story, is about me, not you. So what I'm really looking for actually is a therapist. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Yeah, because the unlimited ability to listen requires either a therapist or finding somebody who's just like you, Jay. You know, we have those conversations where you go for 2-3 hours and you're like, you just feel understood. But those people are a rarity, and you oftentimes don't marry those people because that they're playing a particular role for you. And I'm saying that in the sense of the more that we get a handle of our emotions and our feelings, and the more we're able to speak about it, the more confident we are about being open with it, we actually shrink the conversation and we actually shrink the details of a conversation. So saying, for instance, maybe I've gone to work and you had a bad day at a bar, you come back and you be like, I know what it's, you won't even say anything. You'll just know what to share with him at that point, because you know that I don't need to share every single detail. It's not important. What's important is you to know that bastard at the bar, he ordered his 4th drink and he didn't pay on the 4th time. And that's what I'm vexed about. You're able to go straight to it rather than adding every single detail that comes with it, which is you already pissed off that day. And then your mama said this, and then your auntie said this, and they do it. And then there's a lot of things that you're adding to it, the spider's web, because you want to be understood. But the more you tell your stories and your emotions and your feelings on a regular basis, the less you actually bring wider perspectives, and you're able to focus on that core point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but them details are important. No different. The devil is in the details. See? No, I got you. For sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I just look at it because as you were saying all of that, I was just thinking about how Tupac used to write his lyrics or whatever. It used to be like a whole paragraph and stuff, and he'll just go back and cross out half of the parts that wasn't as important to what he needed to actually make his lyrics. So if you ever look at his pages, his writing and stuff like that, it would be a lot of the page would be crossed out because it was just taken away from what he was actually trying to get to. So yeah, I got you.
Perfect example. You know, we long-winded here around here, so I ain't never mad if you're long-winded. I like long conversations. I like people to explain all the details. I like to know all. You know what I'm saying to you? Yeah. Just the other people, just they're not as well versed in that area. So you know, we adjust for them. But I know what you're saying. You know, there's nothing more better than being able to explain all the details of the story. Like, why would I not want to tell you all the details of the story? You know what I mean? Like, why would I not want to be able to explain because it's like, it's also a validation of what you've also witnessed and what you've experienced. You know what I'm saying? Do you, like, if I tell you the fact that at 1:27 p.m. I looked at the clock and I just knew at that point this was happening, and then I fast forward it to it is that where you never got to experience, and I think this is me just catching a revelation of this understanding, that need to be, I don't even like saying long-winded because that's a negative connotation, but that need to explain every detail is something that was robbed from us as young children. Because when you look at children, that's actually how they tell the story. And it'll be like, and then they will, if you let them, they will unlimitedly tell you a story that has unlimited perspectives, right? It is because we've been robbed as children. As you was talking, I was just deep, and I was like, yeah, because there's not many times we were able to be free enough to tell a story about your imagination or creativity or what you experienced in a day. Like if your parents were really interested in what story was. I remember times when I would go tell, and it's not my parents were that bad or anything, but it's just that they invalidated a lot of their experiences. Like if I go and speak to them, I'll be talking to them, and then within 2 minutes, they're not listening. They're back to their work, or they're cooking, or they're on their computer, and they're doing something. It's like, hey, sometimes you're talking and you got no response, and they turn away, and then they'll just say, go away, I'm busy right now, right? And after a few times of that, that's very painful, but you don't realize this. And so when you get to an adult, you just want to be able to explain in fullness that story and be able to say, and then, and then, and then. Like, how many times can you say that as an adult you've been able to live in that space where you can just tell a story and the person just lives and eats and breathes that story? That is something that kids do, and we've never been able to experience that. That is very painful. I think that's painful.
No, it's very painful. And then there's the other side of it too. It's that side, and then there's like the other side of it too. It's just like, I want you to follow my story, and I understand that a lot of people might not have experienced what I experienced, so therefore I need to add into these details to see how we got here. I'm great at math. Math is my thing, and so it's just like you need all of these variables on this to make this calculation make sense to you. So I have to give you all of these pieces so it makes sense, because it makes sense to me with all of these pieces in here. You know what I'm saying? So you can understand why it is that I'm trying to help. What it is I'm trying to help you have my thought process. That's what it actually is you got to see it the way I see it so you can understand how I feel about it. This is why I feel this way about it. I don't want your feelings in it. I need you to know my feelings. And so that's what the actual thing, like for me, especially it is stuff, because it reminds me of like one of my homegirls I used to talk to all the time, where she had her situation. So it'd always be her bias on it. And so I get to telling her a story about me and the dude I was talking to at the time. And here she go, yeah, you know, they like to cheat and stuff. It's like, but I'm not dealing with a cheater. I'm not dealing with a cheater. I'm dealing with somebody that just doesn't have time. It's a totally different thing. So let me tell my story before you jump in. So therefore you start telling more of the story. So you can see, like, sis, no, this is what I'm dealing with. This is why I look at it in this manner, and this is how I feel about it right now. This story is my story. It's about me. Don't put you in my story at all, because you're not in the end of this equation. Do you hear yourself in my equation? No, this is my story. So it gets to a point where you do get long-winded, because you're trying to make sure that people understand all the ins and outs and how it is that you got to where you are right now in this day and age mindset. If that was not a short enough story for y'all to understand, I'm sorry.
No, Jay, listen, you're absolutely on point. And you've witnessed it. We did it on TikTok the other day. You know, if I had all the time in the world, I'd have been on there for all the time in the world, because as soon as someone starts telling their story, you can tell who hasn't told their story often because of the long-windedness of it. Not in a bad way, just that they're trying to explain every single thing that happened to lead up to that point, right? That live was almost 4 hours. I was trying to cut down the feed. I said, damn, this is long. Someone spoke for 56 minutes. Like, that's how much, because they want to explain every single detail of what's happened to them. And that's the difficulty. Now, of course, they can do it to me because and they can do it to you, Jay, because we have lived that life, so we understand it. To someone else, they would have never done that. You got 5 minutes to explain, and you need to get to the point straight away, because for them, that's what makes sense for them. So it's like, it's difficult. So it's also like I said. That's why I said, like, it's there's a time and a place for us to be able to share it with other people that are very much like ourselves, who can have the capacity to hear you out for 2 to 3 hours, because sometimes you need that. You need a 2-3 hour. I need to be able to explain it for 2-3 hours, and then also us to practice how to be able to say certain things. Because even when I had a therapist, right, my struggle with the therapist was that I always try to keep it very short. And it's because I felt like I didn't want to talk too long. Because all I've ever experienced is somebody invalidating when I explain something. So I try to keep it as short and succinct as possible. So the therapist, I was like, the last person I want to not understand me is the therapist. The last person I want to not hear what I'm saying to is the therapist. Like, you know what I mean? And so I started realizing the more I was talking to the therapist, my healing wasn't coming because the therapist was telling me things. Therapist ain't telling me nothing. Like, shout out to the therapist. Therapist was cool, but they weren't telling me nothing I didn't really know. I just needed someone to hear me and be able to explain. And when I was saying it, I was getting my answers. You know what I mean? That's where my answers were coming from. And so that's why I realized that now that's what the therapist is for me. It's really about telling those stories to have a safe place to land. Then I can be free of that weight. And now when I go and talk to people, I don't have to always explain in so many points of view, but sometimes it's still there. You know what I mean? I'm doing it right now. You know what I mean? I could keep it succinct and keep it for 2 minutes, but I know Jay can handle this. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that 2 minutes be a struggle. I'll be like, what? I got a lot. Hold up. I have a 2-minute pause in the middle of my story. Wait a minute. Like I have to think sometimes, but sorry, let me drink a little tea. But no, I definitely feel you. It's a struggle being in a relationship with people of different capacities, different levels, different understandings. Communication is not always easy. It is something that you do have to practice. You just have to hope that you have somebody that practices back with you and is willing to like try to at least come to some middle ground of each other's style. You know, it's not easy. I like to say I tell my cousin when she got engaged, and you know, it's good to have a partner to fight with you instead of against you. So if we're like fighting our battles together or whatever, meaning that we are on the core to try to figure out how to make this communication thing work for us. You know, I'm thank God for my partner right now because yes, we haven't always had the best communication. We don't always communicate as well as we could probably with other people or whatnot, but we do try to sit in a space where it's just like, let's get to an understanding. Let's try to make this be in a way that we can move forward and be able to have hash things out, have these difficult conversations. Cause you know, that was a lot of my issue, especially like last year or whatever, is getting into the space to have difficult conversations, you know, from anything all the way to, I just don't like your attitude, all the way to, are we going to continue to be physical with each other or not? You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, y'all know I went through, well, not all of y'all, but some of y'all know that I went through personal body changes where I've had my partial hysterectomy. So when that changed, my libido changed for a minute and it got a little weird and got a little scary. So it kind of forced the conversation to be had because, you know, your partner is like looking at themselves like, you don't desire me, you don't like me anymore. And it's just like, I don't desire anything right now. I don't know what the heck is happening. Like, so, I mean, and the conversations get scary, it gets tricky. The best thing I can do is just sit there and just say, like, you know, sometimes it's going to be had during difficult times, but when you can have those down times and find the time to say, hey, let's just talk about this. I know it's not easy. What we started doing personally was coming at and stopping each other. We'll give a disclaimer in the beginning. I don't want you to think I'm accusing you, though my lack of words may sound like I am. This is not me blaming you for anything, first off. And it actually helped because it was a time he did me like that. And I had to sit back because I was about to be like, what we, you know what I'm saying? I'm ready to jump. And he was like, wait, first of all, I'm just saying, I'm not saying this as to blame you. I just want to get this off my chest. I need to just get this off my chest. And it made me sit back and just listen and hear him all the way through. So I'm just kind of like rounding up this thing because I think about this time. But for y'all out there, if y'all are in a relationship or y'all encounter a relationship with somebody, just take your time. Communication is not easy. We all learn and process things differently. So with your partner, you're just going to have to take a lot of time with one another. Just be okay with saying, hey, I'm coming at you at a certain way. It might be my limited vocabulary or whatever. I just don't want you to know that I'm blaming you right now. I just need to say, I need to get this off of my chest so we can try to figure out how to resolve the issue that we do have and move forward from here. I don't know if it makes sense, but yeah.
No, I appreciate it, Jay. Thank you even for using yourself to really give us a really real life example in conversation as well. for those of you who don't know, I don't think me and Jay have had an argument yet. Have we had an argument, Jay? It's normally me, Sean, or Seaway. I don't think we've had an argument yet, have we?
We did. We had the indirect one. That was that one that you that you got mad at me and Sean or whatever. So Sean got most of it.
I done shouted and got angry and left that conversation. Yeah, so I think that's the only real time, right? So we don't usually have an argument because I think usually, like I said, we usually understand the emotional wavelengths, right? So I usually argue with Seaway or Sean, mostly Sean. But you know what I'm saying, like, and I said that to say in the sense of when people have the same kind of mindset and they understand you, you tend to have less of those disagreements because there's an understanding, and it's hard because we're trying to make people understand us and we're trying to understand them. So for those of you also listening, I hope that you guys are paying attention to this conversation, because I think it's really powerful that Jay offered herself to be able to showcase that how we are operating in relationships, running a real life example. So like not just me putting it on a slideshow or whatever, but a real life example where you're actually hearing that even sometimes when you do make certain changes, there's sometimes also a process of change of time. So like sometimes we can put changes in and it doesn't make immediate effect. It's still the best practice, but may not take immediate hold, and that can be also difficult as well. So it's about the patience. It's also about listening and hearing each other out. And like you said, best practices in terms of, setting the level before we start the conversation and letting people know that I'm not trying to come at you. I just want to be able to understand you. And that's one of the things I've also learned as well. So we'll definitely be talking about that as time goes on. So for the audience, listen, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back a little bit later on, not on YouTube, but on TikTok. So I have to go for my run. I haven't gone for it yet. I'm probably trying to avoid, that's probably why. But we are going back on TikTok at 5 p.m. EST. We're going to be talking about the same subject, but we're just talking a little bit different on TikTok. We'll have some different voices and a panel as well on there as well. Probably be on there for a few hours, can't lie to you. If it goes like last week, we're definitely in trouble. So in a good way, it's good to have people's thoughts and opinions. But we'll be on TikTok a little bit later on today, and that'll be the last live of the night, and then we'll be back on Wednesday for Married at First Sight, Thursday for Married at First Sight, Friday Jay and Elsie will be going live as well with Ready to Love. I'll be going live on Ready to Love on Saturday, and then Sunday we'll have Love is Blind, and also having myself and El Cid talking about Married at First Sight Australia as well. So we are going to bid you guys adieu. I will chop this up. Please, again, I put the link in the chat for the LBB 91 coaching channel. Please sign up to that. Please subscribe to it. It just makes it meaning that we can when I do my videos in future, I will solely do it on that channel so we can have a dedicated space for those kind of conversations as well. Okay. All right. Appreciate you guys. Stay locked and loaded. We'll see you again very soon. Much love, appreciation. Don't do anything I wouldn't do out there, baby. Okay? Don't do anything I wouldn't do out there. And be safe as well. We appreciate y'all.